Hello, everyone. Welcome to DevStandup episode 19. Today, our guest speaker is Andrey Adamovich from Extreme Automation. He's also the current CTO of Vlavi Group. Andrey is doing a lot of coaching. He's giving mentoring workshops to the companies and has also his own company. And today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is called why our estimates almost always goes wrong for the software development perspective. And Andrei will cover the insights with us, and it's going to be like really interesting. I'm looking for it. And Andrei, here you are, and you could start your part.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eleanor. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, let's talk about this because, I think it's something that happened to most of the developers that when you're trying to estimate something, you act from the best intent. You try to find the best, shortest path to the solution, but quite often you get it wrong anyway. And of course, the customer is getting angry about that, and your manager getting angry about that. It's always, it's always a big problem for communication between the business and the development, because our expectations and our intent is not always shared, so to say. Right. So yeah, Elnor presented me. So primarily I'm a developer. I worked in development for many years. I'm still a developer. I'm still writing code. So I still consider myself a developer kind, so to say. But I do also other stuff. I'll do DevOps. I'll do fractional CDOs and training, speaking, and stuff like that. So yes, one thing is like estimates is everywhere, right? It's not just in the software industry, of course, it's everywhere else. And one thing I do sometimes, and just do some experiments with the audiences that I have a possibility to talk to. I do the polls, right? And one poll that I did, I'm showing you the results of that poll. I was asking them how much time would it take to change a tire on your car. Right, and you see, it's a simple question, right, on one side, but there we get different answers. So some people think it's going to take 30 minutes. Some people think it's going to take 10 minutes. I mean, if you're a professional, if you're like a mechanic and you have tools, most likely it's going to take 10 minutes, right? If you are like a normal person with no extensive experience of changing tires, maybe it will take 30 minutes, maybe more, right? Maybe you'll find someone to delegate this task to. But still, I mean, simple task, we have different answers. Then I asked, how much time will it take to change color of a single button on your homepage? And you see the distribution here is much bigger, right? Some people think it's 10 minutes, some people think it's 30 minutes, some people think it's like 1 hour, right? And of course, we didn't put any precise description of the context here because we don't know how big is the site, how well it is designed, how does the site has any CI/CD pipeline and stuff like that. So you see, different people give you different numbers. And in this case, I mean, we still it's okay because 1 hour is still reasonable estimate that people will accept. If you gave it like 1 day, that would be suspicious, of course. Then I asked, how much time will it take to change color of all buttons on your homepage, right? And you see that we have even bigger diversity of answers here. And again, from these estimations, you can kind of guess that how good is the architecture of internal architecture of the front end or back end of that specific project that we're talking about, right? So of course, if it takes the time of one button multiplied by the number of buttons in the site, I would say there's something suspicious going on with your technical architecture, right? On the other hand, if it takes two plus hours, that's also a bit suspicious because that's too much. That means that your technical architecture actually is not good. So in certain cases, of course, most likely it would take 10 minutes in a proper project, maybe 1 hour in more advanced projects. But it definitely should not be A or E in that case. And we can kind of, from that, we can guess how well is because most likely the people who said A, they actually prefer to cheat on the customer, right? Because it looks logical that we have 5 buttons. One button takes 10 minutes. Let's multiply that time. But of course, in technical domain, it's not always the case. And those who said it takes 2 plus hours, there's also, most likely it's not that they're cheating, but most likely the technical background, the technical architecture, the technical ecosystem in their project is very bad, right? So it takes, too much time to approve something, validate something, and stuff like that. Could be good indicators. Then I asked how much time will it take to build a landing page? 5 sections, one for modern design. And again, you see different different answers here. I mean, again, I didn't give any other context, right? Just the questions you see on the screen. So of course, depending on how you look at the problem and what you consider to be a modern design and good page and all that stuff, you give the answer, right? So for some people, for enterprise people, most likely will take 2+ days. If you consider all the integrations, all the translations, maybe some other things that you need to introduce into a very good page, right? On the other hand, if we talk about AI and you just ask that your AI assistant to generate you a page, actually it will be even less than 2 hours. It will be like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe with some tweaks it will take an hour, 1 hour. So again, a lot of things depends on our definition of what we actually want. And different people see that differently, right? And of course, when your manager comes to you and asks you how much it will take, usually you cannot give the answer because you don't know all the context. And I did this poll to show people how differently we actually think and how differently we look at the context, how differently we look at the ecosystem in which we are going to implement the task, right? So just a simple question produced different answers. Also, then the next question was how much will it take to write a simple Twitter clone, right? And you see that, again, different stuff. But again, people were not saying it's going to take 1 day, even though with AI, I think it could take 1 day. People because of course, Twitter clone Twitter in general is a very complex ecosystem, and an engineer who understands the complexity, they will definitely estimate that was being 2+ months, because of course Twitter is not just a web page, it's all the ecosystem behind it, all the analytics, all the ads, all the suggestion mechanisms, recommendation mechanisms, consumption of the different types of media and all the stuff. So an engineer knows that the complexity is high, so of course they will estimate it higher. People who are maybe less experienced, or people with maybe a bit more brave approach, or people who are targeted more at MVPs, they would say that, okay, probably will take a week or 2 weeks, right? Something will be done in 2 weeks. Something valuable will be done in 2 weeks. A complete solution will require 2+ months. Again, we can kind of see how much experience people have who actually give that estimate, right? Then I ask people, how much time will it take to build a nuclear plant? Obviously, nobody in the room had that experience, including myself. Actually, I Googled it before the speech, and I think China can build like a nuclear plant in 5-7 years, sometimes even faster. In Europe, it will take 15+ years. Again, depending on the location, you will give different estimates. But of course, nobody in the room could actually. Nobody could think of, how much it will take, because they never did that. But of course, everybody had an opinion, as you can see. And then I'll ask like a funny question: how much will it take to finish a current project? And again, you see that some people say never, maybe because it's a project that's not supposed to be finished. Some people said it's 1+ years. Some people 2-3 months. So again, people have different perspective about the future. And they have different perspective of what's expected to be done in the future. And sometimes they see only part of that, some part of the context, and they estimate only that. They don't see the full strategy from business, CEO, CTO, stuff like that. And of course, if you ask CTO, they will probably tell you that it's going to take 1+ years because we have so many things in our pipeline. If you ask a developer who is just fulfilling 5 tasks in Jira, they will say it will take 2-3 months because what they see is only those tasks. So again, the context, the ecosystem, the tooling, the experience, the geographical location, the capabilities of your context, they will influence the estimates. And the simple poll kind of actually the room was full. There was 20+ developers in the room. 11 of them participated in the poll, but you can see that even professional developers estimate things differently, right? So even between us, we cannot agree quite often how much it will take. And then it kind of was a funny question about estimating which number is bigger, right? It was a mathematical question. Of course, some people get it right. So, but as you can see, because it was very fast, I think I gave only like 20 seconds to calculate it. Many people couldn't estimate it correctly because, and that's what we often see in our context, right? We see expressions like that, and then we see expressions like that, and naturally we tend to go into something that looks simpler and assume that's the right answer. I mean, in this case, was probably I should have done it a bit more complicated. So in this case, many smart people, many people with mathematical background were in a room. They kind of estimated it quickly and fast. But imagine if this expression were a bit more complicated, then people would actually require way more time to understand that, let's say, this number is actually the biggest number. The other numbers are a bit smaller, right? So again, sometimes we don't know the full context, or sometimes we need more time to calculate how much it will actually take. You know, with these mathematical expressions, I wanted to demonstrate basically that sometimes calculation of or estimating the precise thing will actually take time, and you will not get it right from the first go. And some people didn't get it right, as you can see, roughly half of the people actually didn't answer it correctly. Right. So I actually have lots of slides. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I think this poll demonstrated most of these gotchas that people see. And another thing I see a lot between communication, in communication between business and developers, is that a business quite often treats estimates as a promise. And in that case, of course, we as developers, we should be more strict on that. Like we never say that it's going to be, if you ask for estimate, you get an estimate. It's a guess. It's a qualified guess. It's a guess with some assumptions. It's a guess with given some context. It's a guess given some conditions. And of course, smart managers, they do understand that. Not so smart managers or managers with little experience in the industry, of course, they will treat estimates as a promise, and they will hold you guilty after that, which should not happen. And I mean, basically, estimate. If you look at definition of estimate is about roughly calculating or judging the value. So it's never a promise, and we should not. We obviously should not treat it like that. And another thing it's common is that in software industry, and you guys know that for sure, we often are overly optimistic, especially technical people are overly optimistic, because the context that we see is not always the full context, and quite often we see in our technical terms what we can do, and the thing we can do, we will estimate, but we never estimate the unknowns or the things we don't understand yet, and we never put it into the estimate. That's why we're getting overly optimistic about that. So of course, anyone with like more experience in the industry, they will try to be probably still will be at some point optimistic about estimates, but at the same time, they will know that certain things have to be calculated or added on top of the estimates, because they're always, in most of the contexts, you will get something else on top of that. And you will never be precise. I mean, never be precise with that. Right. So yeah, a few additional examples. I mean, maybe this. First of all, let's go with this picture because I really like it. And maybe you've seen that yourself as well. Simple fix, right? Hey, just simple fix. Let's just fix a style sheet, and then you realize, oh, my mobile version is broken. Let's fix it again. Okay, then we figure out that some JavaScript library is broken because of that, or we have to update it because we cannot do it just in CSS. We have to do it in JavaScript. Okay, then we realize that some JavaScript library is not supported anymore, so we need to upgrade. Okay, let's go there, and then we realize that this new upgrade actually breaks the API request because it fucks up messes up some characters in the API request. Okay, we have to go and fix the library on the back end now, and which we realize, okay, we're just putting too large strings into our database. We need to fix the database now. And of course, from the perspective of a customer or of a project manager, it looks like we're bullshitting, right? But in reality, this may happen for sure, especially if we as developers want to do professional work and a good work. We will do all these steps. We will not make a simple fix or a simple duct taping of the code. We'll go and do the fix. But from the perspective of external people, it looks like we are doing some magic stuff that doesn't seem to work at all. So maybe we're not as professional as we say. Of course, sometimes we have to. Well, maybe in this case, I mean, maybe this is an extreme case, of course, but maybe in this case, we actually should be more honest with our customers and communicate with them what is the outcome of our actions and why we're doing things in a certain way. of course, if we are stuck in certain things, we should either offer them, okay, let's live with this bug. It's visible, it's fine. Or let's spend more time to kind of investigate in this. So I think the main mistake that many people are doing, like many developers are doing, is that they dig into the problem and they never give feedback. Of course, something that began, and the customers, they had only the initial estimate, like it will take an hour. And when it takes 3 days, obviously customers lose trust in you because they don't understand why something that takes 1 hour should take 3 days. More frequent communication, more frequent update on the status. That what will change the perception of developers. That's what we should do as developers for sure. Because of course, technically we understand that may happen, but customers don't. And we need to make sure that they at least are on the same page with us. Right. And another example that I give quite often in this case is, again, a scratch on the wall, right? So imagine you have, in your office, a scratch on the wall that doesn't look nice. And again, if you're not a painter, if you're not a construction worker, you can't really estimate the actual impact of that, right? So because first of all, a lot of things will depend on, do you have let's say, do you have a leftover paint that can paint it over? Is the scratch basically just washable? What's the material of the wall? How deep is the scratch? Do you need to have extra actions to kind of hide the scratch, right? Do you actually have the skills to fix it? Because sometimes people can paint, but people cannot really use the special skills to kind of even the wall, right, or flatten the wall. So also, how big is the wall? Because sometimes the presence of the paint doesn't give you the ability to just paint it out, because paint may be a bit older than what you have already on the wall, and then if you just paint the scratch, then you will have another spot on the wall which looks a different color. So basically, you need to paint the whole block of the wall. And if the block is small, then it's fine. That's probably will be enough with the leftover paint. But if the wall is big, then it's a big problem. It's a big problem, and you have to actually spend more money on that and more time on that. So that's what I'm usually using with my customers when they're asking about why certain things are taking longer than we expected. That's because you don't see the problem in the way we see. Because the scratch may be small, but if we want to do it professionally, and if we want to have really do the good work, then we have to do some preparation, have to do some other stuff that is not visible in the on the surface in the beginning. Actually, when I was presenting at one of my customers, they said to me that one solution actually in this case could be to put a painting or a frame on the scratch to hide the scratch, which is a valid solution if you think about that. And then of course it's a creative solution to a problem that doesn't require you to paint the wall, right? So it's a good thing. Right. Yeah. Also, you've seen this picture. That's kind of obvious that at the first glance it would be 8 hours, and the close examination will be 32 hours. And actually, that's the thing with estimates. The more precise sometimes you want to make them, the bigger they will become, because the more people will invest time into understanding what is the quality behind, what is the quality fix or the quality implementation of certain customer requirement, the more precise it will get, the more tasks it will get on top of that. Right. So how much time do we have? I can talk for hours, guys.
Around 15-20 minutes is fine.
Okay. Yeah, another thing, maybe you can see it on the slides as well. That of course we speak different languages with our customers. We speak different languages sometimes with project managers, and of course sometimes people imagine this kind of horse as the final product, but then the scope is being reduced, the budget being reduced, and what you get as a result is something like that. And of course, developers are not happy because they had to cut corners, and the customers are not happy because they didn't get the nice horse, right? That's another thing. So there's a term called lingua franca. So we have to talk the same language so we understand what we actually mean back in the days when I was younger, I really was keen to jump into the technical solution and do technical stuff right away. But now I tend to spend a bit more time with the customers to understand what they actually want, what is the scope of what they want, and then translate it to more like technical language. Because quite often, if we really have short conversations, then we imagine different things, and then we get not what we want. If we have slightly longer conversations, slightly more discovery talks between each other in the beginning of the project or throughout the project, then we can come up with a language that everybody understands. Okay. Yeah, another thing that maybe is worth, especially for developers, because that's like that sometimes it's also a game, because quite often the amount of time you put into estimates kind of influences the amount of budget that you're given, right, and amount of pay that you will get as a result. And we start off, starting this negotiation. Okay, how much time will it take? And some people say, okay, it's going to take 32 hours, and then you get this puzzling expression from a manager, 32 hours, no way, it's too much. And then, okay, maybe if we cut something out, it will be 8 hours. Oh, okay, that's better, right? And then, of course, when your initial estimate as a professional estimate was 30 hours, and then you have to cut it out to 8 hours, obviously you have to kind of expect that somebody have to expect that you'll get something like that in the end. And here, I think what we should learn from both sides, from customer side and from developer side, is that if you are a professional developer and you know what you're doing, then your estimates can be discussed, but at the same time you should be more strict on what you provide as a number. Because if you don't, then you will deliver like half-drawn horses as a result. Or you will spend more time, but you will pay for less time, right? So of course you have to find the balance here. What's better approach? Because of course sometimes it does take like 9 months to create a baby, for example. You cannot take it cannot take less, right? And you cannot have like 9 women to deliver one baby in 1 month, right? You have to have more. It's still going to be 9 months anyway. So so in certain cases, of course, you have to be more strict on what is the bottom limit for you to work on that, because obviously you have to. First of all, you have to be healthy. You have to be, you have to be investing enough time, comfortable time, into delivering something that is a quality thing. And then you may have discussions about what you put into that, right? Because sometimes you don't need to do like some certain things when you deliver a product or deliver some configuration and stuff like that. But you have to be a bit more defending as a developer your estimates. And of course, the more trust you build between you and the ordering party, the customer party, the more they will trust your estimates. Because of course, this estimates sometimes it's about money, of course, but in most of the cases it's about trust, right? Because if some people say that they will deliver the solution in 30 hours, and they deliver that solution in 30 hours, that builds trust, and that's what important, right? And of course, if you say under pressure that it's going to be 8 hours, and then you still spend 30 hours regardless, then first of all, you are the trust is not built, and also you don't feel confident. You don't feel very good about the fact that you kind of you confirmed under pressure that it's going to be 8 hours, but then anyway, your original estimate was way more closer to what you said, to what it actually become, rather than to what you said to the manager under pressure. So yeah, that's important part. Yeah, another thing, I think I already mentioned that a couple of times, that whenever we estimate things, as technical people, usually we estimate things that we know. And unfortunately, humans are very bad at estimating things that we don't know. I mean, it doesn't need to be human, of course. And anybody, like animals as well, they're not good at estimating things they don't know, right? And of course, if you are an experienced project manager, or if you're an experienced developer, you know that certain discovery process will happen when you go into the task. Right? Maybe there's a new library, maybe there's a new requirement, maybe there's different type of screen or different types of design that you have to introduce into your solution that you will have to explore. So of course you can produce like reasonable estimate that okay, within 8 hours or within 40 hours, I will produce something valuable. Will it be a complete solution? I don't know, but within 40 hours, within the week of work, I will cover all the knowns, and I will leave some space for the unknowns so that I can explore them. And as a result of my work, of like now a week of work, all the knowns will be solved. All the unknowns will get some additional estimates and some additional discovery facts about them that I can estimate further after we did this like discovery research session, right? And of course, eventually you will also come up with things that you didn't know, and that will also something that, of course, nobody can estimate because it's unknown. So yeah, that's what we have to consider when we're doing estimates, right? The context, the fact that software delivery is often a discovery process. First, like the examples I gave in the poll, if you need to change a button or color of a button, that's for most of the professionals, that's a known thing, right? You can really estimate that. If you need to design a landing page, again, for most of the professionals on the market, especially for professional front-enders, designing a landing page is an easy thing. They know how to estimate that. They did that maybe many times. It's easy to do. Maybe there will be some unknowns, like let's say we need to integrate with the CRM. How do we do that? We don't know that. So we definitely can, let's say, it would take 3 days, 1 day for covering the knowns and 2 days for covering the unknowns. But still will be a time box which you can give to your customers, during which you will definitely produce some value, right? Because customers, in my experience again, most of the customers, they don't need your estimates. They don't need precise estimates. They need the fact that you will deliver in certain time box and that you will provide some value with that time box. If the value is given, they usually are quite good at giving you more time, and that's what I also see with the managers. If you are good at justifying the time spent, you will be given more time. That's for sure. Right. Okay. So we're talking like for 27 minutes. Do you need more? I can talk forever.
Yeah, you can continue with, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing might affect estimates is also the environment in which you are in, because I've seen, I have worked with many, big companies, old companies, and when the company is big and old, they accumulate some set of tools or some set of beliefs that everybody in the company believes in, right? And those habits that I have in the company and those tools that I have in the company quite often also affects the estimate. And sometimes when the company is not too much interacting with the outside world, with the industry, what's happening in the industry and all that stuff, they tend to give estimates that are bound to the environment. They don't tend to give estimates that are possible in the world. And then when someone from outside is coming and telling them that a landing page actually takes 1 day to create, they look at you like you're crazy, because it takes 2 months in their environment. Because first of all, you need to approve the design. You have to go through all the approval stages in their process. The CEO has to sign it and all that stuff. And of course, it takes 2 months. So in many cases, especially in very bureaucratic environments, like some banks or some regulated industries, they do have some bottlenecks or some impediments that do not allow them to go fast. And sometimes it's the tool that they're using. Maybe, I don't know, if you're using Jira, for example, Jira is okay, but it could be configured in a way that is becoming an impediment, right? Because you have to fill like 50 fields to create a new task in Jira. And of course, when you have to fill, out of the 50 fields, let's say 20 are required. And when those 20 fields are required, obviously it stops people from adding more work, adding more description into the system, and they just tend not to use it. But then, because it's forced, they kind of postpone the filling of the ticket into a later phase. And that, of course, kind of eats their internal energy, and then that kind of creates more time that they actually spend on the task, because the tools becoming the impediment. So yeah, this also is kind of important thing, because again, different companies will estimate things differently. Different projects will estimate things differently, because they are the product of their habits and their tools. Okay, another thing, maybe. Yeah, maybe this one. Yeah, this kind of similar picture about unknown unknowns, right? But quite often we also don't estimate correctly the simplicity or complexity of the domain we're in, right? Again, if we're talking about tire, well, it's estimatable because the domain is simple. Most people can figure out how to change a tire within 2 hours. I'm pretty sure. But if we're talking about complex domains, let's say if we're talking about AI, or we're talking about some high frequency trading, or some stock exchange, stuff like that. Those are complex domains, and especially because they have too many connections between different elements of the domain. Sometimes even a simple task will actually turn out to be bigger than it should be. Also, as I mentioned a couple of times already, the part of the domain could be also the tools that you're using, the environment that you're in, the people you're working with, and of course they will be distractors. Whatever, I mean, and quite often we as developers, we tend to estimate things in an idealistic world. When we are working in total vacuum, nobody is distracting us, everything is clear, and of course this will be like, initially it may seem like it's 8 hours, but if we are working in the environment where we are distracted every hour by someone, we have too many meetings, we have some incoming emails that are urgent for some reason, we have customers that are changing their mind every day, then of course whatever was initially estimated will obviously be influenced. And that's another thing that many professional managers, they know how to incorporate, because they realize that anything that was kind of promised or estimated 1 day ago, if we have new conditions, have to be re-estimated, because that's a new thing. And in that case, I really like this well, it's pronounced Canavin. Some people actually pronounce it as Sinafin, but it's a matter of how you spell it. It's a Welsh word meaning habitat, right? And basically, different types of estimates should be used in different types of domains. And Canavin was created by David Snowden. He's a guy, he's a researcher who did a lot of research like in knowledge structure of how humans structure their knowledge. Well, that's the framework he came up with, and I really like it because on one side it's very simple, on the other side it's very profound. And basically, there are like 5 domains that you can split the knowledge into, more or less. I mean, of course, probably there are more, but 5 meta domains, so to say. So when you have a clear domain, you can apply best practices. So everything is clear, everything is understandable, and usually your estimates will be precise or almost precise in this domain. So if the task is clear, you can estimate it clearly as well and precisely as well. Then we can go into more like a complicated domain where good practices will work, but your estimation precision will not be 100%. It will be maybe 70, maybe 50, maybe 60%. So you have to, and of course, it's the task of the project manager, the task of the developer to understand in which domain they are. And usually, like they do understand that. It's just that they cannot fully communicate it to the other party. But it's important to know where you are, because you will apply different types of estimating and different type of approach to the task, right? So usually in the complicated domain, you have big part which is known, and you have some part which is known to be unknown, right? And of course you will kind of usually will do some sort of precise estimation for the known part, and some time box for the unknown part, right? And that in my experience could be 50-50, could be 70-30, stuff like that. Then there are other domains, like complex domains, where the interactions between the elements of the domain are so complex and so unpredictable that you cannot really predict fully what's going to happen. Right? I mean, to some extent you can. There's still some picture that is visible, but of course in that case your estimate probably will be 1/10 of what you originally did, right? So of course in this case you will probably use a different type of practice. You will be more agile, more adapting to the environment. You will be more kind of exploring, researching, discovery things. So your estimations will be more time boxes rather than estimations, right? So within certain time box you will deliver a certain value. So in this case, of course, you have to be more time boxed rather than giving some promises at all. And in chaos, everything is changing like every minute, every day. Let's say if you take AI as an example, AI was like that like in 2023, more or less. It was very chaotic. Lots of people made a lot of promises, lots of observations, stuff like that. And of course, in that environment, what you can do, you can only react, right? Basically, usually what you would do, you will put yourself into a defensive position, and you will try to understand what is going on, right? And you'll try to kind of probe different things. So usually your goal is not to attack. Usually your goal is to defend yourself, or defend the organization, or defend the context you're in. So of course, different types of estimates, different types of approaches that you will apply to. And unfortunately, what many projects that I've seen in the past were in, they were actually in the confusion domain, right? They didn't know in which domain they were. Of course, most people think we are in the clear domain, we know everything. But in fact, it's not true, right? Because in a single project, you can actually be in different domains at the same time. It's just very important to understand in which domain you are. And intuitively, many people understand that, right? But Sinef and Kanavin kind of gives this vocabulary and ideas that we should be discussing this more frequently with the managers within developers. That this is estimatable, this is not estimatable. Let's make a time box, do a research, do a discovery, different stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Andrey, I think we could wrap up. I mean, I know that the topic is like pretty not kind of straightforward. Like we could talk a lot about this kind of notion, but let's dive into these questions. Maybe Atakan could start, since he's also in software development.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting topic actually. Like we had both, like even on, it's also that one of the things in this channel also the side projects that we were making. So what do you think about where does this like new mentality of like ship fast, ship fast, break things comes to this estimate model? Do you think it is a good approach that can speed things up, or is it something that just once in a blue moon that just works?
It's a good question, because again, it depends on the context in which you're in. Because if you're building a product and you have, let's say, senior developers, and you have trust in them in your team, make fun, move fast, break things probably is a good approach, right? Because those people will, of course, break things, but they will do it in a more or less controlled environment, and then they will do it in a controlled way. So they will do controlled experiments. If you go into the move fast, break things with junior team, well, it will be a mess, obviously. And also, I mean, if you go with this approach into more regulated environments like banks or some government organizations, it will be a mess. It will be really because they have very many things to consider about security, about data security, data sharing, all this stuff. And if you just randomly expose data to certain domains, it will be a very, very big problem. So in certain domains, it's fine, and in certain domains and certain types of teams, I think it's totally fine to move fast and break things, because, well, they are professionals. They know they're not just breaking things, actually exploring the territory, and they're learning from every break that they have. So it's important to have a team that can absorb the knowledge from the failures. If you have a team that cannot absorb that knowledge, or a team that is operating in a very strict environment, well, that's not the good approach.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, now I could ask my own questions as well. So after listening to this presentation, I would say that yeah, you said right that people are a little bad at estimating, but do you think that the real failure is not in actually estimating the time, but actually estimating the risks and these unknowns and this variability in the development? Then
yeah.
So if we are good at estimating this part, so estimating time will be easier for us.
Yeah, absolutely. If we really are, I wouldn't say we are bad. I think it's natural that we don't see the unknowns, right? And I think the most important part of estimate, I mean, it's still important to estimate, to understand how much potential energy it will require in order to implement certain thing or to explore a certain thing. But we need to kind of understand the differences in activities that we do, because if it is a research, we need to be clear. It's a research. We are exploring the territory. If it is a complex task or a complicated task, and it will require some more time to understand how the internals, we have to use the vocabulary for that. We have to tell to our customers, to our project managers. That's something that will probably take more, but we will time box it for now, and go on, right? But what I really believe in is that when you have trust between those who do the work and those who order the work, then estimates slowly become unneeded, right? Especially if you work like in an agile way and you do like sprints, like weekly sprints or bi-weekly sprints, and you trust that your team will deliver the value within those time boxes, then I mean, it doesn't really matter how much it will take eventually, because on every step you will get some value. It's more important to kind of to prioritize what is coming first, and then eventually it will be done. And of course, the team, if you have trust in the team, and the team has understanding what is the business goal, what is the product we're creating, then of course they also will optimize their time, optimize their effort to make the best out of it. Because the environments where I've seen where people are spending too much time on estimating is where you don't have trust, where you have one part is developers, another part is business unit that orders the feature, and then there's like a big gap between them. And of course, one side is asking how much it will take. They say 2 months, and the business says, sorry, we cannot afford that, right? Because it seems like too much time for this kind of things. And sometimes a lot of political plays are going between those two parts, because they're not really connected. They're not really trusting each other, because one side wants it cheaper, another side wants it more expensive because they sell hours, or they want to do some to address some technical debt, for example, and they put some extra estimates to allow them to have some space to fix the bugs, or so they actually have good intentions, but they have to play the political system within the company to blow up the estimates, so the other part gave them more money and more time, and they can kind of collaborate, right? So usually in this kind of environments, you have this obsession on estimation, and people are really using estimates to play with the budgets and to play with their own goals, rather than solving the company's problems and the product problems. They actually trying to solve their own internal department problems with these estimations.
Yeah. And also, I saw like you kind of shows a definition of the word estimation. So I would like to ask you, like, what's the difference between estimation and the deadline? Because deadline can also be like, let's say, set by managers as an estimation, and you can also miss this deadline. Like, what's the main kind of difference between those two notions? That
Yeah, well, the main difference is the scope, right? Because deadline is deadline, but what's supposed to be done by that deadline?
Because like when you set deadline, you also kind of estimate like when the project is going to finish, right?
Yeah. Well, in some cases, in some, especially again regulated industries, let's say if the law has been changed, there's a date set in the law, then the deadline for implementation of the system is that date, right? And you cannot really change that. So it's a real deadline. So in this case, of course, you have to find all the resources to kind of implement that. But what quite often I see in the projects is that managers are putting the deadline, or customers are putting the deadline because it makes sense to finish something before that, right? Maybe because they have some other promises to some other parties, or maybe because they just want to have some pressure on the team to deliver something working by a certain date. What is actually changeable? Well, one thing is that in many situations, I've seen that many times myself, is that most of deadlines actually are not deadlines. You will not be dead after that. You'll be just fine. And most of the deadlines are expandable. right? It's just that, again, because of mistrust or because of miscommunication, developers may think that we have to work to meet the deadline. But if you have to work like 200 hours a month to do it, that's not a deadline. That's a torture. That's a exploitation, if you want. And unfortunately, I work in this environment myself. We had this managers who said, okay, there's a deadline, we have to do it, and then like a whole team of 7 developers were working 200 hours a month to meet the deadline, right? I mean, it was fun while you were young, right? After some time, it's not fun at all. And then you realize, and of course they paid you for that. It's also a good thing. But then you realize that what you delivered actually was not that much needed by that date. You could have postponed it. It just was some sort of promise that was given to one person, to one manager by another manager, and then there's another promise given to another line of managers. And this chain of promises led to a date that is forced on you. And then so it's not really, because most likely some people did estimations. They just didn't do precise estimations. They did some estimations. And of course, when you dive into the task, when you dive into the project, you realize that let's say you had like 3 months till deadline. You realize that with the team of 7 developers and 3 months, you cannot do that in 3 months, right? Because it's just too much work. Then what you have to do, you have to agree on the scope, right? You have to decrease the scope because obviously it's not possible. And that's another thing I try to do as a rule for myself. I'm not trying to fulfill other people's promises. I'm only fulfilling my promises. And if I see the impossible situation, I communicate that, because that's another responsibility of a developer. You have to communicate. If something is not possible in a given time frame, in a given deadline, you have to communicate that. You have to say that, okay, we can do this within this time frame, with this deadline. The other things have to be postponed. Or give us more developers, buy some tools, or do some other stuff. We need more resources, or we need more time, which is also a resource.
Yeah, that's right. And lastly, there is like this uncertainty, this estimating the time. Also, there can be like the incompetency in the people, that they are really afraid like to promise early. That, for example, they could say that, okay, I can promise a bit later, and then like I could just work a bit slowly, just to be like incompetent in a way that it's not kind of uncertain, but they are kind of used to this kind of comfort zone or something like that. Like if I kind of put myself in a manager's shoes, right? So in that case, like, do you think that there should be also this check for those estimation, and like there should be also estimation betterment processes imposed by the managers on the people, because that they couldn't all the time just give like really long time horizon like to complete something?
Well, in general case, I think we shouldn't do that because we're not gonna increase the precision. That's my experience. With big companies, with big consulting companies that have lots of projects, they do have a lot of statistical data, so they can kind of have a rough estimate on how much a project of implementing a CRM will take for a customer, or how much a project of integrating with a banking system will take for a customer. They have this data, so they can have like initial rough estimates of how much it will cost. That's a good type of estimate. They're based on historical statistical data that you have. On the other hand, if you every time you control your developers and say, okay, why this took 2 hours but not 1 hour, and why this took 5 hours instead of 3 hours, that's more like a micromanagement, a useless activity, because it's more like it shows that you don't trust them, and it shows that you're trying to optimize their time to unrealistic expectations, right? So you try to use a big, and not to be honest, we have 8 hours, like 8 working hours in a day, and no reasonable person can work all 8 hours. It's impossible. So of course, everybody who's estimating anything will put all this slag that you have daily into that estimate, right? So if it takes 8 hours, it takes that. It means that within the day you probably will have some disruptions, right? You will probably go to a toilet, you go for dinner, you will do something, right? But you will focus, you will finish within those 8 hours that task, which is good enough, right? I mean, of course, you can try to compare people. Like, well, this person did this button color change in an hour, but this person asked for 4 hours. So something is wrong there. But I don't think it should be the task of the manager. Maybe it should be the task of the tech lead or team lead, or in general. I mean, you should hire people whom you trust, because if they try to play the system, and they will play the system if the system is bad. But if the system is good, they will be working on the system and will be delivering value. Because I mean, I've seen it many times when the manager is trying to micromanage you and trying to kind of squeeze every minute from the estimate, and then asking you why you were like 30 minutes longer on the lunch break. I mean, that doesn't build trust. That doesn't build you know that doesn't make those people faster. Anyway, right? So it's more about inspiration. It's more about, you know, giving people the space. Because again, the other example I've seen a couple of times is that there's like one person or in the project who is very valuable, and they did a lot of contributions in the past, and they are very effective because they know the system. So their estimates are usually quite precise, and for some time, this person seems to be like the best person on the project. Then, because he's so knowledgeable and so useful and so reliable, managers start dragging him in all possible meetings, right? And then after half a year of such work, you see that person is 7% doing the work, and 93% is in the meetings. And of course, his estimates will blow up. He will estimate more and more and more because he understands that he can do it in 1 hour, but because of these 5 meetings in his pipeline, he has to do it in a day, right? And that's another thing. The environment will influence that. So good manager will understand that. Bad managers will continue calling meetings.
Yeah, I think we could wrap up here. Yeah, Andrey, thanks a lot again for these interesting topics. I hope it will bring some clarity to this confusion topic and debatable topic. Yeah, guys, that was it. That was the end of DevStandup episode session 19. I hope it was enjoyable for you. And every week we feature one guest speaker from the industry. If you have topics or if you know someone who would like to be our next guest speaker, please fill in the form under the description below, and our team will contact you and we could feature you in our next DevStandups. Apart from that, have a nice day, guys, and see you in our next DevStandup. Bye-bye. See you.
See you.